All right, welcome back to the podcast where we talk about my personal journey to building an 8-figure marketing agency. I want to document the stories, things that we're going through on our way to building an 8-figure marketing agency, selfishly, but also if you want to follow along and hear what's going on in the business and going on in my head, that's what this is for. We got Wilson Seneca here, one of our creative strategists at 3 Second Media, to ask questions, to dive deeper. I'm excited for today.
Yeah, I would even argue that it's unselfishly because you're sharing some of the secret sauce for other people to kind of get their toes in the water. Yeah, I definitely have some questions I kind of want to get to, but let's just start here. Kind of want to get into more specifics. So what kind of benefits have you gained from mentorship? And are these mentors strictly in business? Is it more personal? Do you have different type of mentors? And just talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, the best mentorship that you can have is someone that's going to help you break your limiting beliefs. Basically just show you what's possible and maybe give you some clues to follow. That's the best mentorship that you can have, I think. There's a lot of coaches out there that will show you the specifics, here's how to do this skill. Mm-hmm. But you got to know what skills you need to reach your goals. And that's what good mentors are for. They point you in the right direction. They say, hey, go read this book because you're having this problem and you need this skill to overcome that problem. That is super helpful, just knowing how to solve the problem. Then you go do the execution.
And what is the process of finding the right mentor for you personally? How do you go about kind of networking your way into finding the right people to help you unlock your personal potential?
Yeah, I guess I've just been super fortunate to grow up around my mentors. My mentors either lived in the neighborhood I grew up in. I grew up in a super affluent neighborhood, a few billionaires, in fact, in the neighborhood I grew up in. And those aren't my really close mentors, but so those people. But then also I have some family members. I have a brother-in-law who runs a landscaping company who's been super helpful for me. My dad runs a marketing agency. He's been super, super helpful. My uncle, he has more businesses than I can even imagine, so many businesses, and he's helped me a lot. So I'm probably not the best person to speak on how to go cold call a mentor or go find one, because I've been lucky to just have them thrown at me in my life.
No, the reason I ask is just knowing you for the past couple of months is I feel one skill that you definitely have is you're just a great networker. You're great at meeting people and having it be personal, but also still making the most of the relationship and seeing how you can mutually benefit off of each other and be mutually beneficial. So I don't know, maybe talk to me a little bit about that. How do you go about networking with people, whether that's in the mentorship realm or just with people in general in the space?
Yeah, I actually don't know if I'm a very good networker.
Really?
I mean, I might be better than average, but I don't know, if I were in network marketing, I would not thrive. I built my whole business online. Really, if I wanted to, I don't have to leave my house.
Yeah. But
when, if I were maybe to just construct, break down networking, number one is finding some common ground, something you both can relate on. I think it's really hard to network with someone where you have nothing in common.
Yeah.
Then that leads into what are you passionate about? What are you working on? What are the problems that you're having and facing? How can I help? Just providing value to the relationship. Like I said, I don't know if I'm the best networker ever, but I do enjoy just having conversations with people. I'm genuinely interested in people, and so just getting people to talk is huge. But I don't know if that's very helpful.
Yeah, no, I think it is, and I think maybe it's just a trait that you have that you don't even realize that you're so great at doing it. But I don't know. I feel from my point of view, you're a great networker, meeting people. And
I'll tell you one thing though. My grandpa taught me the framework for skill development, and there's four different phases of skill development. You have unconscious and incompetent, meaning you don't know how to do it, and you're not unconsciously doing it. Then you have a conscious uncompetent, where you know that the thing exists, but you can't do it. Mm-hmm. It's I know that running paid ads will work for my business, but I don't know how to do it yet. Then you have unconscious competent, meaning you know how to do the thing, but you don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
It's like Babe Ruth or Michael Jordan. For example, phenomenal basketball player, but there's probably a reason he never moved on to be a coach.
Yeah.
because he just knew how to do the thing very well, but he unconsciously did it just due to repetition. Then you have the conscious competent, meaning you're extremely good at the skill and you know how to teach it. I may be an unconscious competent, meaning I might be good at networking, but I could not teach it.
Yeah.
It might just be a skill.
I kind of want to backtrack just a tiny bit. You talked about, when we were talking about mentors and mentorship, how they've been able to help you kind of overcome limiting beliefs. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about that, maybe with an experience, something that comes to mind, especially like initially as you were starting and maybe more recently now, as you've been running the business for over a year now?
Yeah. And maybe let me backtrack a little bit more before that.
Let's
it's like,
do it.
I have a lot of mentors, but I have one mentor who's like my formal mentor. Like I asked him, will you be my mentor? And we specifically outlined like what that would entail. But most of my mentors are informal. In fact, they probably don't even know that they're a mentor of mine. So I think like to have mentors, you don't need to make them formal.
Gotcha.
It can just be a connection where you provide value to one another, or maybe that person just provides value to you because it makes them feel good. So I have a mentor who's an informal mentor who happens to be a client of mine. And he is 2 years older than me. So number one, when we talk about breaking limiting beliefs, he's only 2 years older than me, but he's doing 10x what I'm doing right now is financially, you know. So for me, just like thinking ahead in my life of what's possible when I'm 23 right now, when I'm 25, what that will look like, that even just being around him, like that was being around him, asking questions like, what is he doing? How did you get there? Where were you when you were 23? That breaks limiting beliefs, you know? Like if you had a friend that was, how old are you?
22.
So you're 22, if you have a friend who's 24, got out of the ad lab program, let's just say 26,
Okay.
gets out of the ad lab program and is just like crushing it in advertising, like doing Super Bowl commercials, like, or starting their own clothing brand, whatever it is. Like that's inspiring for you because you're like, okay, I'm on that path. And it's just validating. It's so validating.
You can see someone else did it from where you're at.
100%. Yeah. For me, like just hanging around people who have done way more than you, it's like close enough where you can grasp it and make it a reality. Like if I went and hung out with a bunch of billionaires, it would not help me in the slightest. Maybe a little bit for like the material motivation of like, I want the things. But having someone who's like, just a few steps ahead of you, but big enough to be like, oh shiz, like that guy's doing way more than me. Is, I don't know, it's just that, it's that inner like athlete of me, I guess, that's like, whoa, that's possible. I just got to do this, and that. So for example, like the person that I was hanging out with recently is spending $200,000 a month on ads.
Wow.
And profitably.
That's crazy.
And if I were spending $200,000 a month, I'm spending a fraction of that on my ads right now. But if I could scale it up to that point, that's what I need to do to get to the next level. And in fact, in my business model, I don't need to quite scale it up that big. But if I can scale up my ads, that is my clear path to get to where he's at. And so that was a limiting belief breaker for me, was like, he's doing 8 figures a year in annual sales and we're doing 7 figures. And so that's a 10x jump right there. But it's possible in 2 years.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy to me. But it just made it a lot more clear, the path to get there.
I think it's really cool the way you put it, because I mean, I feel like we hear all the time, like you are who you surround yourself with and stuff like that. But I never had it put as like someone like just out of reach. Like it's a lot more motivating when you're like, he's right there. Like I can get there. I just have to like put in the work and like, I don't know, I think it's a really cool way that you kind of put that together. And I totally agree.
Dude, it's like if they're too far out of reach, it just seems impossible. It's like I was a swimmer in high school. If I were swimming with Michael Phelps in the lane next to me, like I have no shot of trying to keep up with him. If I can, if someone right next to me is swimming and I can see their toes, like, a few reaches out in front of me, I could grind down and go catch him, But if they're lapping me, like it's not even a competition.
Right.
Like it's like, okay, I obviously can't do that.
That's super cool. No, I totally agree. I am curious, you mentioned kind of like you guys have different business models. How did you like go about forming your business model for 3 Second Media?
Yeah, business models are not created equally. And there are easier business models to run than others. And I think I've talked about this before, but like if I were to try and start, let's just take, for example, like a software company. I don't know, software companies are really hard to start. There's a lot of upfront capital. You're probably not going to see like actual profits for a long time because of the capital that you have to raise. There's so many moving parts. Where my business model, we collect cash up front before we do any work. I could run the whole business by myself if I wanted to, just for a few customers, right? Just an easier business model for a beginner. So I worked at a marketing agency. I saw that I could do what these guys were doing. And then I just went out and tackled it. So that was how I chose the business model. Is I had experience in the space and I knew that it was a beginner friendly business model as opposed to like I think e-commerce is really hard. Supplements are really hard. Anything food, like restaurants, probably really hard. Software, probably really hard as well. But service-based businesses where you collect cash up front and then can allocate that capital to go execute what you said you were going to do, that to me is like such a solid business model.
And what was kind of the motivation for keeping, or I guess creating a remote media agency? Like, what are the pros of that, maybe the cons of that? And like, do you ever see 3 Second Media becoming not solely remote?
Yeah, it started remote because I loved working remote. I worked at a remote agency and I just loved the freedom and flexibility. I think our team members appreciate that, and it's a fun work environment because there's so much flexibility. But it all comes down to freedom. I think that's why all entrepreneurs go into entrepreneurship is because of the freedom aspect: time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom. That's all we want. And so running a remote agency was the clearest path for me to achieve time, location, and financial freedom. And it's given me a lot of that.
I'm just curious, like, because like obviously the dream sounds like start your own business. Like you have all that freedom. It's fun, it's engaging. What do you feel like are the main things preventing people from starting their own business? And what were maybe some things that you experienced at the beginning that would deter people from? Because it's a big jump, I feel like, and especially in the minds of like me who hasn't started a business and other people who are kind of in a more comfortable corporate job, is I feel like sometimes it's kind of blown out of proportion how big of a step it really is. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah.
Or would you say it's more doable than people really think?
I think it's more doable than people think, but I think it's harder than people think.
Interesting.
So what I mean by that is anyone can start a business, but not everyone can run a successful business or an exceptional business for longer than a year. It's hard. It is really, really hard. I did not expect it to be that hard, but it's been way more rewarding than working for someone else. I loved working for someone else and I was making great money working for someone else, but I was not pushed. I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I think if you have that feeling and you've been wanting to start a business and you are committed, because you got to be committed, then you should go all in. But like worst case scenario, it doesn't work out and you go back and get your job.
I think it was Jeff Bezos who said, if I'm 80 years old looking back on my life, what I will regret is having an idea and not acting upon it. Whether it succeeds or it fails, I want to be able to say when I'm 80 years old that I tried an idea that I believed in. And I feel like that's such a cool idea. And like I 100% agree. Like there's people, they're wired different. There's people that, are risk averse. They don't want to go out. They don't have the desire to start a business. They don't have an original idea that they're passionate about. But I would say for those that kind of have that drive and need that personal fulfillment in bringing to life a personal idea, like that's such a huge thing. It's like, I want to be able to look back on my life and say, I tried something. I'm not going to care when I'm 80 if it succeeded or failed. but I did it. And like, that is where the gratification comes from.
That's so huge. Yeah. Like life is way too short to not do what you want to do in life. Look, like I get it. It's scary. But again, what's the worst case scenario? Are you going to die?
Yeah.
Is it going to kill you? Probably not. If it is going to kill you, I would think twice about it. But if it's not going to kill you, why not go live your dream?
Yeah.
So, and if it ends up working out, awesome. If it doesn't, you learned.
100%.
Like it's a win either way. I think people should take more risks than they do. I'm a big risk taker, like a little too much. My wife balances me out a ton. She's not a risk taker. Well, she's learned to take more risks, but she's definitely not a big risk taker. And so we have this really good partnership where I'll go in and I'll want to take the risk, and like I have no emotions when like we lose 30 grand. Like our first year in business, we lost 30 grand on an investment opportunity. And at the time, that was a ton of money to me. That was a lot.
Yeah.
And I just blew it off. Like we'll make it back. Like it's not a big deal to me. So some people are, and I used to be extremely emotional about money. And I think that's what holds people back.
Really?
They're so emotional about like, but I have this security of a job, which I think like the security of a job is one of the biggest lies that people are told.
Really?
Nobody's secure in a job. The only security is owning your own business and being a rainmaker.
It's true.
If you can't make it rain, so to speak, you're at the mercy of someone else paying your bills.
Yeah. That was one of the first things I learned at one of my previous jobs was we're hiring you expecting that your value is worth more than we're paying you.
Yeah.
And if it's not, you're not going to keep working here.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of, working under someone in a business. And you're totally right. If you're an entrepreneur, you have a lot more control. You have all the control and power over, your own job security. So
yeah.
I think it's super insightful.
It is less secure. It is less secure in the beginning though.
Yeah.
When you're like just trying to get the thing off the ground.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you won't have income coming in for the first little bit. So.
Because I feel like there's two big kind of roadblocks in anything, like starting an idea. And the first one is getting from like having the idea to starting it, and then being able to work through that huge roadblock of I'm doing stuff every single day, working on it, and it's the exact same every single day. Just hoping and believing that one day it's gonna get traction and stuff like that. And also just being consistent for an extended period of time. It's really easy to get the excitement of an idea and get started and make a logo or make your first video or whatever it is. It's harder to do that consistently for an extended period of time. And I feel like that's one of the biggest differentiators between things that actually work and things that don't, is just strictly consistency.
Dude, totally. But most people aren't willing to not see results for 10 years.
Yeah. I'm
actually one of those people, which is why my business model works really well for me, because you can see results month one. This sounds crazy, and I even openly say this to my team members, but like any one of my team members could start an agency and month one make more doing that than working for me. I'll say it openly. If you want to go do it, I 100% support you. One client could change your life. And that's why I love the agency model. Like it is the best, easiest first business model ever. Dude, if I can do it, like anyone can do it. And so I do agree though, you have to be willing to put in the work, because you may score that one client, but that client can leave you like that.
Right.
And you've got to be willing to push the envelope, especially if you want to do something excellent. But there's a lot of competition in agencies. Like, you could leave and start a business, but I'll squash you.
Yeah.
Because of the competition.
Right. No, that's true.
So, but anyways, yeah, I agree. Like consistency is so key. Big lesson learned over the last 2 years of running this thing.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, I think we covered a lot of good stuff this week.
We did.
Was there anything else you wanted to kind of finish with today, or?
No. I thought that was really just good to get out some thoughts. I appreciated your insights too. Like that was awesome. So appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you guys.